All right, so let's do with part 2 here. I wanted to change the data here. See if I can find something like that. I don't remember if I before. Yeah, one thing you can do with this plot is that once you have it set this way, like from 1 to 7 and 0 to 25, sometimes it's a little bit odd. Like, I don't want to be 7, I want to go like from 1 to 10 instead, right? So you can actually resize or restructure the axis here. That can override the number system here. So if you just provide the numbers like you see here, then they just it will use that, or it will automatically generate that for you using the last number as the last line here. So that sometimes doesn't make sense. You want to go like 1 to 10, something like that. So you can change that. I think by going to something like, you can modify the axis. So I can do plt.x axis, and it takes 2 parameters. So you can include, I think it's like a array from, so the x-axis is from 0 to 10, and then the y, I think the next two will be like the y-axis, 0 to be like 30. Let's see if this works. I think that might actually change the in here. Did you do it? No, didn't do it. Let's try again. I'm not sure if it did or not. Yeah, I probably had it wrong. Let's see. Do I put 2 of them? No, it will still be 1. No, what if I put the 0 through 20 and then 0 through 50 happens? What is this number here? Oh, I zoom in. I zoom in. Yeah, I'm not sure this is not showing, but you can actually change the axis to kind of reshape that size to different numbers instead of the default. And I probably got the wrong syntax for that. But anyways, it'll be something similar. Okay, then let's go and explore a little bit with the stats here. And to do that, I'm just going to use the console. I think it's quicker. Just explore some few stats. I mean, there's nothing much you can do other than just, get the data and so on. So let's just say I import the stats first. And I want to make it as a short variable, just call it s for stats. So I can use s in my code. It was the same if you put in the actual file. But, so let's just say now I have a list of numbers. We call it again data. I can use is MP still here? Let me see. Yeah, it's still here. Okay. So I can use data equals np.arange or array or range. of number from 1 to 1,000, and I'll skip it by 3. Okay. So that's my data from 1 to 1,000. 333 elements. And so from those numbers, that's a lot of numbers, you can use the statistics to get this data. So I can say something like s dot get the mean of the data. So you just pass that data to the mean function, and it will give you the mean of those numbers. Okay, just the average, right? And you can do the median from that data of list. It gives the median, which is that number as well. You can get the mode. No unique number. Yeah, found the equal common. Okay, doesn't work. I can get the standard deviation, I think. Right. You can get the variance. So I mean, for statistics, these are really handy. It's easy to use. It's built in. The hard part is to get those data, right? To generate those data, and then you can use that to build. So with those numbers, as you can see, I have about 333 of them. It's a single array, and with that, you can then it's a 333, so that's an odd number. Well, you can do something like this. If you want to get just a certain number, you say d1 equals, gives me the data from 1 through, I guess, 10, right? So d1 has those 10 numbers. d2 gives me the data from 20 through 30. So now oops. Oh, yeah, I have too many. Sorry, try again. So see, my D1 has those numbers. My D2 is data from 20:30. That's what I want to get. So my D2 also has that. So 2 sets of numbers. And then from those data, right, then you can do the plot. So you can say plot. I'm going to plot this using D1 and D2. Right? So you can, one is 9, one is 10. I thought they're the same shape. They're not the same shape, I guess. D1, D2, oh, they're not the same. Let's see. D1 size, D2 size. Oh, it's 9 by 10. Okay, let's try D1. D1 is the data of 0 to 10. D1 size. Okay, so now they're both 10. So then you can go back and plot using those numbers, and you got your plot, right? It's just a straight line. So you can say you can use those numbers generated from anywhere, from a database, from a file, and you can use all these numpys, the stats, to plot all this data here for you. Okay, what we do so far is just basically put these numbers here, which is not that nice, right? So usually you read that from a data file, and then you process those data. Okay. One way to do that is to create files. And so let's go back to the Explorer, and I'm going to create a file in here. Something that we haven't done before is CSV file, the comma separated files. And when you deal with data, those are really handy, right? Really useful. just a text file basically, but it's unique because you separate each with a special delimiter. So I could put in here some number and call it points, whatever they are, .csv. It's a CSV file, so it's just plain text. And then those points, might be related to points on a test score or a certain user, right? So the first field, if you think about a table, will be student names. You can say, able, the first score is, let's say, 90, second is 88, third is 100, fourth is a 95. Able, let's go. And then I can go for like Brian, 100, 99, 92, 3, and then 90. And then let's go with like Christy, 99, 89, 92, and 100. Right, so you can read those data into a file, and then you process this data. And I'm using the comma because these are comma separated. It could be a different character. It could be the the pipe symbol. If you want to use them, it doesn't matter. So that's my CSV file. Okay, so now in my stats file, and I'm going to modify these. I'm going to terminate all these here. And I'm going to do it at the top here. So I'm going to read in those files, those records, into a variable. And then you process those data and you plot it. Okay? We'll see if this works. So the first thing is I want to read those files. It's a CSV file. Now, Python has a CSV library as well. So import CSV. It should be in there. If it's not, we'll find out. So import CSV. Yeah, it's included. Okay. So normally when we open files, if you remember before, we used the open file and then we read it as a text file. That's good too, but it's not as good because you have to, strip some data, remove the /n, we get the line feed, and so forth, right? So normally we did like we have an in file, we did it before, is equal to open the file called points.csv, and then we open for reading, something like that. And then when you open it, you can read it into a data variable, infile dot. You can read everything as a string, right? It's a string, so it's not that useful. Or the more useful one is to read it as a list. So if I do that, run it, and clear my console. So here's my data. If I type my data over here, as you can see, it puts it to a list. But in the list I have is it's fine, but then I have like, it's just a single list, right? A single list of all the elements. And the list here is separated by a line feed. So the first item is actually this whole string here. Whole line, 2 lines, and 3 lines. So what that is, it's size of 3. So if you put like data, that size, oh, not size, length, right? Length of data. It gives me only 3 elements because the first one is the whole record for able. Data of 0 gives me that. And then from there on, you have to do another split, right? You have to split it with a comma, and then in other words, you take 2 or 3 different processes to process the data. With the CSV library, you can use that so that it will automatically put each of these item or field into their own list. Okay, so it's just much nicer than this way. So you can go and then now do this way. See if I remember this correctly now. So I want to say with the I use the word with me. Open this file called CSV. As I can call it in file, same thing. And then from there on, you're going to use the CSV library to read in each of those lines. I call it in file, you call it whatever. So this part is exactly almost same as this first line here, right? You just basically open the file to read. I'm going to save it into a variable called in file, so it's the same idea. Now, and then I can say now the data equals to the CSV dot, and there's a function here called reader for writer and so on. So I want to get the reader function. Okay. So when I read it, I'm going to pass in here mainly just two parameters that we got. They have more in there. If I go back and type it again, you'll see it has a couple of items here. I'm just going to need two parameters here. One is the file that I opened, which is called the in file. So put in file here. And then two is the delimiter. What is that character? And I use the comma to separate each of those fields. And then from there on, I can then, so it takes like another step is to read each row and put it into another data. So I'm going to go up here and create another called points. It's a empty list. And then now I would say, okay, for each record set, it's like you're reading from a database file, right? So you say for each D, or for each row in that record set called data, I'm going to append it to the points. So points append the row. See what that looks like. So once I'm done, then my points has some data. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go over here to the console and clear my screen and see if it works. Let's run it. So no errors, looks good. Now my data, my points is in the global space. If I type in points, okay, you'll see that it's now nicely added into the points list. It's a list of 3 elements, but inside the elements, each of those numbers, each field is added into its own list. It's very different from what I had before. So now if we get the name of able, it'll be like it's a 2-dimensional array, right? Row 1, row 2, row 3, column 0, for example. I say points of 0, 0 gives me Abel's name. 0, 1 gives me his first score. And since these are like strings, it may not work nicely in a plot. But I think it might, I guess magically or automatically convert it behind the scene implicitly for us. So we'll see. So how do you plot this on a graph? So I can use this as the label for each graph, right? So then in my code over here, I can then go ahead and I'm going to rename this again. So I can say like the for each row in the points. Let's do that for each row, right? For each row, the points, the first row here. I'm going to set the label to the row of 0, right? So the first case, that's going to be able. So remember, when you plot it, you need to have two lists. So it will look something like that, right? The first list and then the second list. Remember, having 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 tests. So for example, the first one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, right? The second will be those numbers here, 90, 88, 100, and 95. And I'm going to get that from the row, the first row of 0, 1, 2, and 3. So instead of doing that, you can just basically get the row. It's already a list. So the row from the first index all the way, right? First, second, third, fourth. If you know, you can put a 4 here. If you only want 4, you put a 4 here. Otherwise, 1 colon can take all the way to the end. We know it's only 4, so we can leave that blank there. And it's going to plot that for us. And then once we're done, at the very end here, we're going to go ahead and then put the plot, the y label. It's going to be y label is the test scores or scores, and then the plot x label is the exam numbers, and then the title of this would be just student test scores, right? And then we'll show it. But then before we show it, we're going to also put the legend, plt.legend. So we show the legend for each of these students. And they'll be automatically colored, so color coded, so that's cool. Oh, the label here? Yeah, I need to put it in here as well. So we got the row, which is the x-axis, and then the column. If this is not so nice, you could just put this in a variable and just call it x and then y here. Easier that way sometimes. But the label is going to be just equal to, I shouldn't call label here, I should just call it bless you. Yeah, it's confusing. I'm going to call this one here underscore label. So a little bit different. There's already a keyword inside the function. Let's see. Okay, so now let's clear my console over here and then see if this prints anything. So here we go. Right, we have those test scores. In this case, not that useful. The plot doesn't really, it's not really meaningful here. So instead of plot, I will probably use just the scatter. And scatter, oh, it's kind of hard to see. Let's try the bar. And bar is it's harder to see because they overlap, right? So once you overlap, you can't see it, and so that's not good either. Yeah, I think the scatter was the better one. The scatter or the plot. Yeah, it's still a better option. You can still see it better. Oh, the solid line. And so that's how you would use it. I think you can change those marker. Yeah, that's a marker, right? Yeah, I can change like the marker. Maybe that's what's called marker. And I can use like I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I can change to like a triangle instead of the default, which is that circle. And you can randomize this because it's in a loop. So you put in a loop, you always get the same one. You know, and you can also, I'm pretty sure you could do the dotted lines. The dotted lines, I don't remember what. They are. Let's see. Yeah, I don't remember. I know it's like R something. You put a little R, and then you put some zero. I mean O for the circle. If it's a dash, it would be a dotted line, and if you put um, a different number, it gets a different the line. It's like the line style basically. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of examples. Again, if you go to the Matplotlit website, they have a website for that. I give you a lot of examples of how you can actually manipulate your output here. And I just showed you an example here. I don't use it a lot, so I don't remember all the features. But you can actually stack the bar charts like I did here. I'm not stacking it because it's kind of hard to see. So if you see here, the blue is smaller than the orange one. You can change the order if you want to, or you can stack them so that one sits on top of the other one using stack. But if you do that, the meaning is a little bit different. So for this one, scatter, yeah, I don't remember how to put a dot there. I know it's a little R thing, and you put an R. I forgot what it was. Oh, it's I know it's an R followed by like a dash dash, and that will actually give you a dotted line, and I just don't remember how to do that. So, but I guess maybe the plot would still be a better option here. So the default marker, instead of the circle, you put a maybe you can put a star. I think you put a star too, and have a asterisk instead. So. All right, I think that's all I want to show you. That's all we need to know for this unit. And the assignment has, I think it's not a really complicated one. I think it's just an easy one. Kind of, let me see, let's go back here. And it just basically asks you to do a very simple plot. So, using the NumPy, I'm using array here, right? 2 arrays, and then create a 2-dimensional 3-body NumPy array. First dimension, create a screenshot. And then down here, I just basically ask you to do something similar, and then here you create a chart, okay, using the array. And the data will be coming from this site here. If you go to this site, it gives you some data. So kind of similar to this chart over here. Number of rainfalls. Using those data, you basically just plot it on this graph here. And so the number, if you see here, the x-axis, instead of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, you're using actually months instead of the numbers for the months, and then the that, and just plot it like that. Scatter plot here. Yeah, so that's something you can do. If you get stuck anywhere, please let me know. It shouldn't be more complicated than it should be. If you get stuck, if it takes too long to do it, I mean, don't spend like 5-6 hours on it. Okay, it should be really easy. And documentation also can be found on the, I think it's called the Matplotlit library gallery. Yeah, it has a lot of information here. You can see the examples they have here. The full documentation is here. What to look at, how to use it, and some examples. But yeah, it's a stack bar here, so you can stack it this way, and it has some bar and then information here. So that's for the Matplotlit library. The other one just NumPy. NumPy, it's huge, so numpy.org again gives you a lot of documentation. If you go to the tutorial, I think it has some tutorial here as well. See here, the basics gives you all these different cool stuff here you can do with NumPy. Alright, well that's all for this unit. The next one, we'll do a little bit of the binary reads. So reading binary data like images, graphics, or like audio, sound, for example. Those are all binary data, right? And we'll see how much time we have left. I know we have about a week after Thanksgiving, so I may or may not assign any assignments after that, because we'll see how that goes. But I think maybe just maybe explore what it is. If I do have an assignment, maybe just a really simple one. Okay, so that's it. Any questions? No? If not, have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe. I know we're gonna, hit by some snow on the way. I don't know how much we're gonna get. Saying something more between maybe 6-10 inches. I don't know. We'll see. But I think we're not gonna get down here. Maybe up there in the northern regions. So be safe and don't eat too much. Turkey's always gonna be there, all right? And I'll see you guys next Monday.